Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from chilly Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up today, we've got an interview with Fred.
Fred Karger. He's a mover and a shaker in the world of United States politics.
Yes, he is.
Long-time political operative
Yeah.
out there in the world. But he's turned his sights to a different thing.
Yeah, and with some potential and possibly exciting implications for those of us who observe the LDS Church.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that plays out. I'm fascinated by it.
Ooh, yeah. Well, Dan.
Yeah, what do you got?
I would like to bring something up that's happening up in Montana.
Okay.
Something I think people actually, if you haven't heard about this, you need to know about it. Neo-Nazis.
Sure. You get those up in the northern part of this country.
Yeah. They have set a date for an armed march against Jews.
Oh, good.
In the town of Whitefish.
Of course they chose a town with the word white in it.
Couldn't even think about that. That's funny.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, they're hitting it. They're hitting it hard. I actually held off on this one. I started seeing this story a week ago, I think.
Yeah.
And a little bit more than a week ago because I didn't use it for last week's show.
Right.
But it was kind of more of a nebulous thing. Like didn't know if it was going to happen, if it wasn't going to happen. They were threatening to do this march. This little town actually has a Jewish community. There are some Jewish business owners, and it is specifically to threaten the Jewish members of this community. This is not just some hypothetical, they found some town to go do a march in protest of Jewish people who might be hundreds of miles away.
It's not about the concept of Jews.
No.
It is specifically targeting
the Jewish community of Whitefish, Montana. And they, through certain websites from the so-called alt-right, or should we say rabidly racist right, the white national side of the Republican Party now. These websites are
also known as the side of the Republican Party in power.
Yeah, that's
currently
actually very important to mention and to remember. They have been calling out for the trolling. They launch a troll storm against the activists and Jews in Whitefish, who have subsequently received a lot of online threats.
Of course.
I'm going to read a couple of them.
Oh, dear.
Go choke on a shotgun and die. You would be of greater worth to society as human fertilizer than citizens. That was targeted at a Jewish citizen of Whitefish.
Great.
What was one of the other ones? I don't need to actually read anymore.
Yeah.
It's awful, horrible. I don't know. I always just kind of let the racists exist up and the skinheads exist up in Idaho. In some part of the corner of my mind, I knew that they were there. And now it's all very real, Dan.
Now they're emboldened. They feel like they can be out in the open. Yeah. They feel like they've got they feel like the incoming president of the United States has their back.
Yeah. That's how they're acting.
It's very disturbing. It's so funny because on some level, I understand that there's this sort of tribalist part of the human experience where there's in-group and out-group, and if you're not with us, you're against us and all this stuff. But why? Why are they against Jews?
Well,
I still don't get it.
They have it worked out that Jews control this country, right? This is what they believe.
Very obviously.
right? The Jews control the money, and anyway, they have this whole narrative that I'm not 100% familiar with, but this is what they're doing. They feel like they are fighting back against a system that most people don't see, and most people are blind to. Right?
And if Jews do, let's just play this out a little bit. Jews control the media. Jews control the money. Mm-hmm. So what? Aren't they allowed to? Like, let's say that they actually were the most successful business people in the country, and they ended up controlling all the banks and controlling all of the media.
Right. So this
is a free country where people are allowed to control things if they do well. Here's
a quote from Andrew Anglin, who runs the neo-Nazi Daily Stormer website. He says, Jews have operated with impunity for decades, destroying the lives of anyone who dared question their international crime or a criminal cartel.
Oh, it's a criminal cartel.
Those days are finished. This is a revolt of the Goyim.
Oh,
right?
My God.
Which is a Hebrew word for nations. And it has sort of a... Can have a pejorative meaning when used by Jews to describe others. Right. And so... if you just follow, if this is a revolt of the Goyim. For him to use that word, he feels a revolt. So he feels like they are standing up to this thing that you can't stand up to.
Lord knows I find these people revolting. Yeah,
Dan, I mean, it's just...
It's crazy.
It's truly crazy, crazy, crazy shit. So there is actually, there are people who are going to be standing up against... this whole thing in Whitefish. They're not taking this line down.
No,
up in Whitefish, and so there's actually, this is pretty brilliant. They're having a fundraiser that's going to be fun. So you're pledging a certain amount of money per minute that the racists march. So the longer they're out there, the more money that they're going to have available to fight against anti-Semitism in Montana and elsewhere. So,
well, there you go. That's how to do it.
Yeah. So hopefully the word gets out on that, so that at least the protesters understand that the longer they're out there, the more they're actually supporting the fundraiser to fight against them. And that's let's see, that's the Montana Human Rights Network that's running that. So. Yeah. People are standing up to it, which is essential. These emboldened folks need not feel like they just have free reign at this point.
We are turning into, as a country, the thing that these people hate the most in other countries, which is a sort of theocrats acting with impunity. And the fringest of fringy elements, because this is these are Christians. This is a Christian movement of people, white Semitism or white anti-Semitism and white supremacy. These are Christian movements,
right?
And I'm sorry, but the alt-right, the extremists, the white nationalists are the equivalent of Al Qaeda, of the Islamist nationalists. We're now becoming the thing that we're fighting against.
Yeah, it's kind of really crazy.
I don't like it. I object.
Oh yeah. Hopefully they don't get too emboldened.
Somebody needs to tell them what America was supposed to be about. They seem to have a misconception.
It's amazing to me that somebody, I don't know, I love what this country can stand for.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't always, it's not perfect, it doesn't get everything right, but the basic fundamental core values that I was always taught that this country's about.
Yeah. Melting pot.
Yeah.
Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free.
All of that and everything else that's written on the base of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
All of it.
That's supposed to be what America is.
Yeah.
Or get the fuck out. We're building a wall.
Right.
There's that.
You're the wrong color.
and the wrong religion and the wrong.
We liked it when we could be racist against other white people. That's the that's the past that we want.
Right. Let's get
the Irish.
Let's get back to hating Italians.
When did
that go away?
When did that go away? And the Irish.
Yeah.
And Eastern Europeans.
Sure.
No. That's the America that I long for.
Those are the good
Let's
old days.
make America, racist again.
Let's make
against white people.
Let's make not white enough a thing. Can we get back to that? Jesus Christ. All right, I'm going to move on. We're going to be talking about Mormons later on in the show, but I'm going to mention something that's happening in Mormonism right now.
Oh dear God!
An article in the Salt Lake Tribune about Mormonism. So, in many parts of this world, as you know, Mormons send out missionarios. The missionaries, they go to all of the world, all the lands, trying to spread their gospel and suck some of that money back out of these lands. But in Africa, in Asia, Central America, they're actually seeing pretty steady growth. Not so much in these United States.
Oh, what happened here? What's
they have shown one of the smallest increases in the number of U.S. wards and branches. That would be a small, sort of basic parish.
parishes? Yeah.
The smallest growth in a long time.
Oh,
yeah. So the U.S., they're used to, and mind you, their growth is still the envy of every church in the country. You know what I mean?
Except like the Pentecostals and.
But yeah, I mean, most churches would kill for,
growth,
0.8% growth, which sounds small, but is good. It's a decent clip. But right now,
8%. Is that even match the birth rate?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
but yeah, right now they're at 0.49% annual growth.
Oh dear God.
And it's
Oh.
So that's they're hitting it hard.
Slipping.
Like they're used to 0.8 to 1.2% growth annually in the US.
Wow.
So they're struggling here.
They are struggling.
They're losing their foothold.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the whole thing, I don't know if you saw this recently, Dan, Utah is the fastest growing state in the nation at the moment. And only half of that growth is coming from Utah's very high birth rate.
Oh.
The other half is coming from, people moving in to work in, the tech industry and whatnot here. And that birth rate is actually slipping.
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
That famously high Utah birth rate is still high by all accounts, but it's not what it used to be.
Good. Maybe I won't have to deal with as many crying babies every time I go to the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
Too many kids in this place. It's a nightmare.
It's true. There are a lot of kids.
Too many children.
Last night at the bowling alley.
Did you go bowling?
Dear God, there were kids.
Yeah.
Saturday night at a bowling alley in Davis County, I didn't think there'd be kids.
Oh. At least they can't go in the bar.
Like little ones.
Yeah.
Wee tots.
Yeah, with the bumpers up.
And the thing that shoots the ball.
Yeah, you know what?
That's cheating.
If you can't bowl, don't bowl.
Yeah, why bring your kids bowling?
They can't bowl.
They're terrible at it.
They can't even hold the ball.
They're absolutely terrible at it.
Fuck your bowling kids.
I don't know why kids would even think it's fun. Why would they think it's fun?
I liked it when I was a kid.
I mean, I
maybe
did
not that
too,
little,
but why was it fun? I don't get why it was fun.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway. All right. Update.
Okay.
Update, Dan.
Yeah, what do we got?
On beards, turbans, and hijabs in this country.
Yeah.
The BTH update.
Beards, turbans, and hijabs, oh my.
The U.S. Army is the newest organization in this country to allow for accommodations. So yeah, so
that's great. The U.S.
Yeah.
So
they're
wow.
joining. So last week we talked about the New York Police Department,
right,
allowing Sikhs and Muslims to have beards,
right,
and in the case of Sikhs, wear their turban, while being in uniform. And now the U.S. Army is joining the ranks, and also with them, they're allowing for hijabs.
Interesting.
For the lady soldiers. And this is kind of a big deal because so you may have seen in the past maybe a photo that included maybe a Sikh member of the armed forces,
right?
Who was in uniform and had a beard.
Yeah,
but it was a case by case accommodation. Now this is a whole new regulation. They're just allowing it.
They're just going to allow it.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, and it's, I mean, how many guys? How hard? It is difficult to see how a beard makes them unable to fight.
Well, the Pentagon had been using this claim for the longest time that a beard gets in the way of a gas mask.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. We have talked about that,
right?
And that's true.
And yes,
it's
however,
it's hard to get a good seal,
right?
When you
however, there are ways. I don't know. I've never had to put a gas mask on,
right?
But nonetheless, they have decided that that is not important enough of an issue to keep our turbaned and hijabbed and bearded comrades.
I tell you what, if I were a Sikh
serving openly
or a Muslim man, and I knew I wanted to keep my beard, but I also knew that it might impede my ability to have a proper gas mask, I'd think twice about joining the army.
Sure,
I'm just saying.
However, apparently, Sikhs as kind of a tradition, part of their tradition is to sort of defend others. Right?
Oh yeah.
And so apparently, there's real desire amongst the Sikh community to actually join the U.S. Armed Forces.
Okay.
It was something that they wanted, and only the ones that were willing to make the compromise of, okay, well, I'm going to have to shave my beard off until I can get my own accommodation, they just were staying away.
Yeah. Is there a way to get an army helmet on over a turban?
That I do not know. Maybe you could put it under the turban.
Yeah, maybe you can tie the turban.
Or a special hardened turban of some kind.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that, but
a turbelmet.
Use some
a herban,
helmet
turban. It's the same thing. You just paint it to look like a turban.
Yeah, you use some paper mache paste.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
And then
or the stuff that you would the stuff that you would use to make a plaster cast on your arm or whatever.
Sure.
Just wrap that on there.
Yeah, you can come up with something. The technology is amazing, Dan. We can do so many things these days.
If you can put a man on the moon, you can get a helmet turban thing happening.
Turban of some kind for our Sikh fighting women or men and women or whatever. Yeah. Or just anyway.
Just the men. I'm taking us to Norway.
No.
Dateline Norway, where on the 1st of January, there's new verbiage in the Norwegian Constitution.
No.
That took effect this year.
I'm intrigued.
Affecting the national religion of Norway.
Okay. The Church of Norway.
The Church of Norway. They are no longer the state's public religion.
No way.
They are... shame on you. They are now Norway's national church. So that makes a huge difference. Problem solved.
What?
Just let's just brush our hands off.
No. That's not where I thought this was going down.
I know.
So it's still official.
I read the headline, Norway and its national church part ways, and I was like, cool. And then I read the article, and I was like, less cool.
Clickbait.
Yeah,
That's clickbait. Headlines.
So the change, they're still going to fund the church. However,
no.
However,
no.
The state will no longer appoint the clergy. of the church.
Oh, that was a thing?
But they will still be considered civil servants.
What?
Yeah. I went into this thinking I was going to read this cool liberal church-state separation story.
Yeah.
About Norway, where I think 40%, over 39% of Norwegians say that they are atheist or agnostic.
You're telling me they can't get another 11 to 12% of the mildly religious to just go along with them and say, nah, that whole official church thing is stupid.
Right. Yeah, we don't need an official church. You can still go to church. You can still have your church, just operate independent from the state.
Wow.
But man, I'll tell you, tradition is a hard thing to fight. The way things are is the worst opponent to come up against.
Oh, the status quo.
Status quo just man, people want to keep things. It doesn't matter how shitty it is.
Yeah.
It's how it is.
Yeah.
And that's how people want to keep it.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah. Although that's not to say that everybody agrees with me that this is a nothing story. There are people who are worried that this article that I'm reading quotes Jacques Berlinerblau, who's a Georgetown University professor, who's worried that a policy change like this might inadvertently trigger a culture war.
Oh, no.
A
Norwegian culture war?
Oh, a European culture war. Yeah, he's saying, quote, certain anti-secular elements in Europe could point to Norway as an example of the ongoing collapse of Christian culture and Western civilization at the hands of diabolical secularists.
Oh, wow.
I do like a good diabolical secularist. I was going to start a band called the Diabolical Secularists, but no one could say it 3 times fast. So.
Oh, yeah, that's too bad.
There you go.
Oh.
Yeah, I know that this must seem like a big deal to somebody, but to me this feels like exactly nothing happened.
They just renamed it and
changed.
said, well, okay, we won't pick your leaders anymore.
Yeah. They basically gave them more power.
Yeah.
They said, we'll still pay you,
Yeah.
and you pick your leaders.
It's a bullshit move.
It's a crazy move.
Yeah.
I know we have Norwegian listeners. Write into us. Tell us what the fuck is going on, because I don't understand this at all.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, Dan.
Yeah?
Maybe they should just let the Church of Norway go the way of the Shakers.
The Shakers.
The Shakers. Are you familiar with the Shakers?
You know, my knowledge of the Shakers is limited. They're a small offshoot religion that happened in the eastern United States.
True.
And my understanding is they don't have sex.
Yeah, that's true. They had some good ideas. They believed in the equality of the genders. Way back when.
Oh yeah,
right?
going all the way back.
1700s. It's all about, the dignity of man and blah 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 blah. Anyway, they made one fatal error.
Yeah.
And it's that they have to be celibate.
Yeah.
Which
unlike the Mormons who reproduce like crazy, thereby growing.
Joseph Smith understood. Lots of babies.
Yeah,
lots of babies.
You therein grow your church. Whereas if you don't reproduce at all, also just saying we don't have sex is a very bad selling point.
It's a hard because if the whole way that you grow or you maintain your numbers is through people deciding to join your group,
right?
Or as they used to do, they would adopt children into the into the religion.
Oh God!
I mean,
great to raise kids that need raising.
Yeah, kind, generous thing to do. And then
and then
teach them that sex
we don't do
should
that.
never happen, so that our movement can die off.
There
were 3 members. There are now only 2.
Oh no!
Because Sister Frances Carr, who was 89 years old, passed away.
Oh, dear.
Week.
Oh, dear.
She had a brief battle with cancer, and now she has left brother Arnold Had, who is 60, and sister June Carpenter, 78, as the two remaining Shakers left in the world. They have had hope for a long time that members would come and join them, that they would grow, that the Shaker movement could continue.
You know, I have nothing against celibacy if that's a choice you want to make. I have nothing against, there are plenty of people who are asexual beings who don't feel the urge to have sex.
Right.
But you're just not going to be able to make it stick. I'm sorry. No sex. Like all the other religions at least know that you say that you shame people about their sex. Of course, that's how you control a person.
Right.
But you let them have it. You say you control the institution whereby they can have sex. You control all sorts of things about sex and surrounding sex.
Oh, yeah.
But you let them have sex.
Yeah, because that guilt is a powerful tool.
Right.
To control and manipulate.
Yeah, and then you know that they're going to go and fuck up and they're going to have an affair, or some teenager's going to have sex, outside of marriage, and then you got them.
Yeah.
You got them.
You need, as a religion, to have people coming in and repenting, feeling bad for stuff that they've done, because it will be an endless cycle and they'll keep needing you.
Yeah.
Right? They'll need your power to forgive them of their sins.
And they'll keep wanting to have sex.
Absolutely.
So it'll always happen.
Yeah.
And then you got them.
It's a brilliant control mechanism that clearly Mr. John Shaker, or whoever founded the thing,
Yes.
old Shakin' Jim.
Shake.
Oh, God. Anyway.
The Quakers are still around. But they figured out that, sex, they have sex. Mm-hmm. For show.
Oh, yeah.
They're sexy motherfuckers. That's what they are. Well, I'm gonna bring it all back home. South Jordan, Utah.
What?
Here in the Salt Lake Valley, nestled in a good Mormon community.
Yeah.
Largely.
Yeah.
Home also of the Johnson family, Ashley, Chaz, and their 4 children, ages 8, 7, 4, and 15 months.
Chaz. Okay.
All ready to go on their on a family vacation to Hawaii.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah. They had an early flight, 6:30 a.m., so they had to be up really early in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
At 4:30, they got up. They had their stuff packed. They were getting ready to go. They went outside because it's cold, ladies and gentlemen, here in Utah.
Is it ever?
They went outside to turn on their vehicle and left it running to warm up, while they went back inside to pray for a safe journey, for a safe trip. Well, God apparently had other things in mind, because as they were praying, God allowed someone to come, jump into their car, and drive away with it.
Oh, no.
Oh, really? Yes.
No. They were praying for the wrong thing.
They were praying. Yeah,
Heavenly Father, while we're in here praying, please protect our car.
Yeah.
While it continues to run.
Since we have made it
warmeth up.
Intensely vulnerable, please make sure that it's there when we get out to it. Apparently, Salt Lake Police, and this is the reason I bring this up is to, of course, make fun of people for praying instead of just being prudent.
Right.
But also, as a public service announcement for those of you who live in cold climates like we do, if you're going to warm up your car, you have to stay with it.
Is that what the Salt Lake Police say?
Yeah, they say that it is a very, very common thing for people who lack the integrity that some of us have.
But this was in South Jordan.
Here's what they do.
Did you say South Jordan?
Yeah. One of the Jordans. We've got many Jordans here. We've got West Jordan and South Jordan. These are different cities. I don't know why. Yeah. Anyway, they'll see a tailpipe pumping out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to see what cars are turned on in this cold weather. You can see it from 3 blocks away.
Right.
Then you just drive up, see if there's anybody inside, and if there isn't, Free car!
Yeah, but this is like low crime corner of the, right? Like these people felt safe in their little Mormon community.
Look, we're talking about keeping honest people honest at this point. Because, a free car is just a free car.
So what happened? Did they make it to Hawaii?
I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They instead had to deal with that.
That's so much money.
And they had already loaded up their not their carry-ons, so their electronics were safe, but a bunch of their clothes, their checked luggage, went away. The good news is that most, apparently, according to the police and their insurance, most cars that are stolen in this way end up being recovered because people just joyride them for a while, and then within 60 days,
sure,
usually they're recovered.
Oh,
but
after a transient had lived and defecated,
in it, or it's been joyridden like crazy over terrain that it's not built to do, just to see what happens.
Minivan, you say?
This was a big old SUV.
Oh.
This was what was it? I had it here somewhere. I don't know.
Oh, it's really sad though.
Very sad story.
Poor Chaz and the rest of them.
The Lord doesn't. It was. I saw today a Ricky Gervais quote. It said something about it's the height of arrogance to believe that the same God who didn't stop the Holocaust will help you find your keys. Don't bother praying. It does you not. If he's not listening to those prayers, he's not listening.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, believe in God, but fuck. Intercessionary prayer is just illogical.
Yeah.
Doesn't make no sense.
Stupid God.
But at very least, don't leave things unattended so that you can go and do your worthless prayer to somebody.
A lot of people, though. I mean, a lot of people leave their car running.
Yeah.
Unattended.
Don't do it. That's just begging someone to steal your car.
Yeah, I guess so.
Put a sign on it that says "Steal me, please." If you're going to do that,
yeah,
you might as well. Yeah. Anyway, if you guys have any question and anything that you want to say about any of the stories that we brought up, you can reach us by writing into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or you can call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Indeed. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
And while on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It's a closed group, so your anonymity, if that's important, is protected.
Indeed it is.
All right, we got a little clippy clip, Dan.
Yeah, we're this is the segment of the show for any new listeners where we listen to an asshole talk to us
asshole-ish
and say something horrible.
Yeah.
Who's the asshole du jour?
Oh, it's one of our. It's someone we keep coming back to.
Sure.
That Brian Fisher.
Oh,
he's a curmudgeon of sorts who has a conservative talk radio show.
He's a grumpy Gus.
He loves the First Amendment.
Oh,
and the Second.
He loves.
I don't know if he has an opinion on the Third.
I don't think he loves all of the First Amendment or all of the Second Amendment.
No. He loves them.
He loves
the Constitution as well.
Oh, they all say it.
There's a big graphic of the Constitution behind him.
Oh yeah,
in the video feed.
Yeah.
Not on this one. I don't know why. He's kind of got a rinky-dink background on this one. I don't know what's up.
Oh dear.
But he has an opinion about people who would dare stand for secularism in this country. So let's have a listen.
Okay.
George Washington said, look, a guy cannot be considered a patriot. He cannot be considered a patriotic American if he labors to subvert either Christianity or the Ten Commandments. The essence of what it means to be a patriot, according to George Washington, the definition of patriotism, the essence of patriotism, is a man who is a sincerely devoted follower of Jesus Christ and seeks to live his life by the Ten Commandments, who adheres to Christianity and to the Ten Commandments. That is the definition and the mark and the hallmark of a patriot. And if somebody's laboring to subvert these things, George Washington said, look, I'm not talking about perfect obedience here. I know nobody's going to do that. That's why we need a savior. But if somebody is out there working to undermine, to subvert these things, to work against Christianity, to work against the public acceptance and the acknowledgement of the Ten Commandments, that guy is no patriot. He is a traitor to his country. And I have no hesitation in saying that today. You want to find a traitor to your country, find somebody who is actively working to oppose Christianity and oppose the public acknowledgement of the Ten Commandments. You are looking, my friend, right there at an American traitor.
Oh, boy, Dan.
I just like that George Washington apparently used the phrase, a guy cannot be considered a patriot. You know that famous quote about George Washington and how guys need to be considered patriots?
Oh, yeah.
Did he? I love the fact that he didn't actually say a quote. He just said that that's something that George Washington said.
It makes it easier, Dan.
Right.
Just attribute general ideas to people rather than, getting in there.
Yeah, because if we get into too many specifics, what are we really doing? Let's just keep it general. George Washington was a general, so there you go.
So keep it general.
Keep it general. I did a quick Google search. George Washington definition of a patriot.
Yeah. What does he say?
Didn't come up with anything.
Really? He never defined what a patriot is?
I get the sense that this is based on nothing.
Maybe.
I think he just made it up.
Yeah, but he's basing it on he's basing it on what he wishes George Washington had said.
On what he knows in his heart George Washington would have said if he had said it.
If asked about it or if he'd cared about it.
Right. George Washington, what's amazing about that claim is that George Washington was famously silent about religion. Like it was a big deal for him not to say shit like that.
Yeah.
That's what was important to him.
Yeah.
Was that he wanted,
No, Dan. What's important is that we attribute things to founding fathers in order to make our arguments sound more
patriotic.
Yeah, and, important itself.
Yeah.
And it has the words of the founding fathers have all this weight and meaning for our lives today when they lived over 2 centuries ago and had different concerns, and they were coming from different traditions, and they were I really it's I love some parts of sort of the lore of the founding of this nation. I've watched that damned HBO John Adams miniseries probably 3 or 4 times.
Right, sure.
Because it's good, and he was a great character.
Yeah.
And Paul Giamatti, boy howdy, he gets into the role.
Yeah.
And I really don't care what they believed our lives today should be like.
Yeah.
I don't care.
They didn't know anything. Like they would be baffled.
Yeah.
Just looking at this world now.
They did something bold and amazing and powerful that had lasting repercussions on the history of this planet. Right?
Right.
And that set up something that could be still to this day, the American system could be restored to something amazing. Right now it's a fucking mess.
It's a bit of a mess. But there's still founding principles that are really, important. Well, one of the most important principles that they came up with was, hey, we don't predict the future.
Yeah.
You should change this shit as necessary.
Yes. These were revolutionaries. They understand revolution.
Yeah.
The importance of defining systems and what have you, and setting up a system that's going to work for you and hopefully your children and grandchildren.
Right. I know that
it's not going to last forever.
I did find one quote that says, I think it was Glenn Beck who popularized this quote, said, "It is impossible to rightly govern a nation without God and the Bible." Unfortunately, George Washington never fucking said it. It's just one of those memes that went around.
And had a picture of George Washington?
Yeah, Mount Vernon, the historians at Mount Vernon can find no evidence that George Washington ever said that quote.
Wow.
But tell that to Brian Fisher. He knows. That's why he didn't quote it.
He probably knows there's no quote.
He doesn't
couldn't find it. He got on Google and he looked really hard. He was like, "God damn it, I know this exists."
And then he's like, fuck it. I'll just say, I'll just paraphrase.
I heard Glenn Beck say it once, so it must be true.
It's got to be true. Got to be true.
Well, Dan.
All right. Well, we had we had a couple of people write into us. One of the things that got some traction was our listener last week who was talking about how their iPhone kept capitalizing the word God.
Oh, yeah.
One person wrote in and said, this is a listener anonymously writing from Ukraine who said, funny thing about capitalization of God is that in the Hebrew, there is no such thing as capital letters.
Oh.
That's an interesting point. So, that's a tradition that started, I guess, with English or one of the Latinate things. I don't know.
Some sort of writing system that has capitals.
Right, exactly. It didn't start going back into the Bible days. Courtney also wrote in and said, "Hey guys, per your discussion of God being autocorrected to have the capital G, in Apple's defense, at least, the iPhone also capitalizes Flying Spaghetti Monster," which is kind of amazing.
I don't know who programmed that in.
Right, yeah, well, there you
awesome.
go. I mean, that makes more sense to me as Flying Spaghetti Monster refers to a single being.
Yeah.
Whereas the word
with
God...
a specific name.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that's the Flying Spaghetti Monster's name. What if it's Reginald? Flying Spaghetti Monster is just what it is.
Yeah.
We never hear about that.
Huh.
Get on that, FSG people.
Yeah.
We need to know what the name is.
At least, and do we know the name of the Flying Spaghetti?
Yeah, I mean, you hear names of, you hear Yahweh thrown around.
Yeah.
Elohim.
Among
the Mormons, that's what they call, that's what they say God's name is.
Do they know God's Heavenly Mother's name yet? Have they figured that out?
Barbara.
Elohim and Barbara.
Uh-huh.
Elohim and Barbara God.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Mormons she's a girl, so who cares?
Yeah. God and Mrs. Elohim.
God and Mrs. Yes. Mr. and Mrs. Elohim.
I was thinking God is a title.
Oh, yes.
In
God.
that one.
God, yes.
God and Mrs. Elohim.
Like doctor.
Uh-huh.
It's an honorific, really.
Yeah.
God and Mrs. Elohim. Yeah, there you go. Thanks for writing in, you guys. Mm-hmm. Do we have some? One of the things that we do here on this program, and I don't know if people are aware of it because we so rarely discuss it, is that people can support us.
Yeah,
people can go to thankgodimatheist.com, click on the Patreon page if they feel like what we do is of value to them.
Yeah, and they're able to pledge a specific amount per episode.
Yeah.
That goes toward us keeping the show up and running.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. And it's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
And
we're actually going to pay ourselves a small sum now.
Yeah. Which is
amazing.
Because we're over 5 years into this little experiment.
Yeah.
And see if we could, talk to a couple people out there online. Honestly, I only thought we'd ever reach a couple hundred.
Yeah, we've managed.
We've far exceeded that
to surpass that. Anyway, we have some people that
got some people to thank.
Thank you. Good.
Yes.
Good.
In fact, let's see. We have 1, 2, 3 new members of the faithful.
Okay.
So thank you, Deborah, Mark, and Terry.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
And then we have 2 new venerable listeners, Karen and Randall.
Oh, okay.
So thank you guys as well. And James continues as our...
remains our savior.
He's our savior.
Our Lord and Savior.
He's our should we call him number 1 donor? He's our top donor.
Top donor, our Savior. Anyway, God bless all of you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Amen. Hey, Dan.
Hey.
We talked to someone.
Yeah, we're about to play an interview that we did.
Yeah.
This guy's he's an interesting cat.
Yeah, I'll say. I think he was a get as far as an interview goes.
Yeah. One thing we didn't even talk to him about is the fact that he's a former presidential candidate himself. He was on the Republican ticket in several states.
Yeah,
including this one of Utah.
Yeah, in fact,
he was on the
not the ticket, the ballot,
the primary ballot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but a mover and a shaker.
Yeah,
not the kind of shaker that we talked about earlier. Though.
no, not one of those. But he's got a little thing going on.
Yeah,
and so we decided to get him in here and talk to him about it.
Roll the tape. Well, we're here with Fred Karger. Fred. I'm going to guess that most of my listeners don't. Your name isn't immediately familiar to them, but you have been in the public eye a little bit. If you don't mind, let's go through some of your history just so that we get a little sense of who you are. You were for the bulk of your career a political advisor. Is that right?
That's right. Ran a lot of political campaigns out of our base. I was with a company I was partnered in called the Dolphin Group in Los Angeles. We ran campaigns all over the country. I worked on 9 presidential campaigns, 10th, including one I was very closely involved with. We did all kinds of local, state, federal elections, corporate work. And so I've been in the political world really my whole life.
Yeah. You worked on what was your first presidential campaign that you worked on?
My first presidential campaign was when I was 14. I worked for Nelson Rockefeller.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
He was running in the Republican primary, and I've always been a more moderate, progressive Republican running against Barry Goldwater. So I used to take the train in as a 14-year-old to work phone banks in downtown Chicago, which is... In all the campaigns I've been involved with ever since, I don't think I've ever seen a 14-year-old come in and volunteer on his own. So I'm what we term a political junkie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You also have worked on some more successful campaigns. You worked with the Reagan campaign, is that right?
Absolutely. We worked on the 1980 campaign. We did advertising for him. We did a lot of work on the 1984 campaign. We were doing kind of some of the opposition for the Republican National Committee, attacking some of the Democrats running initially, and then down to Walter Mondale, who was the nominee. I worked for George H.W. Bush. I was involved in one form of the Willie Horton campaign against him, which was not the horrific commercial that was done. Instead, we worked with the victims of Willie Horton, the sister of the young man he'd murdered to go to prison for life, and then the couple that when he was out on a weekend furlough, he attacked and brutally raped the fiance. And so we took them on tour basically around the country. We made commercials with them, and we helped tell their story.
And that was... you're going to have to remind me because I was pretty young at the time. How did that relate to the campaign?
So George H.W. Bush, when he ran in '88, was running against then Governor Michael Dukakis of Massachusetts. And Dukakis, very liberal guy from a very liberal state, had set up weekend furloughs to try and reform prisoners. Mm-hmm. So he let this very bad prisoner, convicted first-degree murderer, out of prison on a weekend furlough. Right. While he was out on furlough, he went and attacked this couple in suburban Maryland and brutally raped Angie for like 20 hours continually. When her fiance came home, he tied him up, stabbed him 17 times, and it became kind of a symbol of Dukakis's liberalism, particularly in criminal justice, which in the 80s was a big deal. Crime victims who we had worked with very closely were finally coming into their own and were having a very strong voice. So we'd worked on a number of other causes with crime victims, so we were kind of the natural to help them tell their story. And that was really attributed to Dukakis's loss. And if you look back in the history books, you'll see that the Willie Horton issue really was the one that kind of typified the reasons why people did not want to vote for Dukakis.
So you were not creating the "It's Morning in America" campaigns. You were on the dark side.
Right. Dark arts operators, I've been called. I take offense at that. But we did the opposition, and we gave, in an election, you either vote for one guy or you vote against the other guy. And we certainly saw that in November.
Yeah.
So, part of the job of the campaign is to promote your candidate, but also to give reasons why you want to vote against the candidate's opponent. So that's where we specialized.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, considering you being on the GOP side of things for those many years, I think some of our listeners might be surprised to hear that one of your big campaigns or one of the big issues that you have now become involved in is that of gay rights, and that starting especially I think with the Prop 8 in California. Is that right?
Yes, I'm from Los Angeles. That's where I moved when I was 23, and I've been there for 43 years. I retired from this career as a Republican political consultant, which I've always been gay since 18 and had relationships and a pretty healthy gay life, but I was very closeted, which is a miserable, miserable existence to my family, who I didn't come out to my parents till I was 41. Oh, wow. Many of my friends that I grew up with, I came out much earlier, and they were very accepting, but I was just afraid of what the reaction would be from my family for a variety of reasons. And so when I did that, when I was able to come out at work, when I was more comfortable with it, I never really came out publicly. But after I retired, exactly 13 years ago this month, and then a few years later got involved in Prop 8, I knew if I was fighting this campaign to prohibit marriage equality in my home state of California, that I would certainly be tagged as being gay. Who else would be that out front on it? So I knew that was kind of tantamount to coming out. So it was believe it or not, at 58 years old, it was a big, big hurdle for me, but I did it, and I really had no problems. I had a lot of people I'd worked with professionally that came up to me afterwards at holiday parties. Hey, I wish you'd come out earlier, or you could have come out to me. And so it was very gratifying. I didn't get the kind of pushback that we're seeing, particularly now in the Mormon Church and a lot of faiths. I was very lucky in that regard. But I know what that double life is like, and it's horrific.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, especially, this isn't a political statement, but with the way that the GOP tied itself to the religious right in this country, I can see how that could have been seen as a huge political detriment, or it could be politically poisonous to come out as gay. Did you feel, was that how it felt to you, or?
Not so much as a Republican. I thought actually it's a little more newsworthy, a gay Republican, because there aren't that many of us. The ones that were in the Republican Party, like a lot of reasonable people, have left the Republican Party as it's moved further and further to the right. It's not the party I started working for in 1964 with Nelson Rockefeller and then President Gerald Ford. I worked on his White House staff 2 years later in 1976. 12 years later in 1976. So it was somewhat a difficult thing, but I feel that I have a better voice staying in the Republican Party. If every LGBT person leaves, then we don't have any contacts, anything covered. But if we stay in a little bit and fight, as tough as that is, and believe me, no one knows better than I, that we will have a voice, that people we'll be less inclined to come up with a legislation that demonizes us. And a good example of that is something I did back in 1978 when we had in California the Briggs Initiative. It was Proposition 6, and there's a great movie called Milk by my friend Dustin Lance Black talking about that. And what happened was, and everything bad that happened then and now against LGBT rights has really come from Republicans, not the Republican Party, but individuals, State Senator John Briggs, the author of that initiative. And so what we did was to organize a group of Republicans to oppose that. And that initiative, different than Prop 8, was to ban anyone who was gay or lesbian from being a teacher in the California public school system. And Ronald Reagan, between his two runs for president in 76 and 1980, this was 1978, through a group that I was involved with, came out and opposed that initiative, which is, nothing you would ever see from a Republican today 2 years before he's getting to run for president. You'd always want to do as much gay bashing as you could. So I had great regard for him, but I put a whole Republican effort together to oppose that. Did not want it to be a partisan issue, which is very important in any kind of civil liberties, social movement like we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why it would have to be, why that would have to be a politically polarized issue other than its connection to religion. Can you, or would you disagree with that?
Well, that's the brunt of it. That's the reason there's the hate, and that's the reason we're seeing all this legislation. But what's happened, the Republican Party has been hijacked by the far right, the alt-right, they're called now. And they did it very methodically. They started, I go back to 1964 with Barry Goldwater, who wasn't all that conservative as it turned out. He was much more, internationally conservative against the Soviet Union and China at the time. But what happened was they got organized and they took over the county parties all over the country, and they took over state parties all over the country. And by the time Reagan was running in 1980, they were pretty strong, and then they took over the National Party. And so you're seeing the terrible things that come out of the Republican National Party right now. There are 168 members. People brand the Republican Party. There are 37 million Republicans around the country, approximately, which is falling, actually. But the National Committee, which does the platform, does the rules, puts up a lot of candidates, they're run by 168 men and women, 3 from every state and the territories, and then a national chair. And that's what the problem is. But if you're going to just completely disregard the Republican Party, the LGBT community is going to be left out in the cold. And right now, of course, we have President Trump ready to take office. We've got Republican House and Senate. Most of the governorships are controlled by Republicans, and most state legislatures now. Big change in the last 10 years. So we need to really have a seat at the table, and that's one of the reasons I'm sticking with it, as tough as it is.
Holy cow, yeah.
Well, so can you tell us a little bit? Tell us about the Prop 8 fight and about what you learned, because where this intersects with our thing is that suddenly the churches are starting to come into the battle, and you were you were pretty key in exposing that fact. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I did not grow up in the church. I've not been Mormon. Really knew very little about the faith. But I offered myself up in 2008 to the Prop 8 campaign. We had lost, I think, about 27 state marriage elections. And I hadn't really been involved. A lot of them hadn't gotten that much attention even. I had my career, and I supported a few financially. But when Prop 8 came out, we need to do things differently. There was a story in the San Diego Union Tribune when I happened to be down there in the spring of 2008. And 3 of the biggest donors to qualify Prop 8 were from San Diego, and they were all in the newspaper article bragging about their $125,000 contribution or their $293,000 contribution. And one of whom, the $125,000 donor, is a guy named Doug Manchester, who I knew by name in San Diego. We used to refer to him as the Donald Trump of San Diego. He's the biggest developer, the most obnoxious guy, names all the buildings after himself. Well, he owned the Manchester Grand Hyatt Hotel, the largest Hyatt west of the Mississippi, 2 beautiful towers in downtown San Diego. And I thought, why should he get a free ride on this? Why should my money or anybody who supports LGBT rights go to his hotel? So I organized the first boycott that's ever been done. And thanks to my good friends, I'm being sarcastic at the National Organization for Marriage, who he had given the $125,000 to pass through to the campaign. They had a fit, and they went to the LA Times, which did a big story about our boycott, and it was just me starting it. We had no real allies at that point. And then suddenly the New York Times, the very next day, did a story. We scheduled our boycott, big demonstration during Gay Pride in July of 2008, and we had over 200 people there. We got a tremendous amount of press, New York Times story, and that went all summer. And then suddenly, following the money, and all these names that I'd never heard of working in Republican politics in California started giving $50,000, $25,000, dentists, two guys from Arizona, this Craig Carden and Brock Hyatt, whom I'd never heard of. Well, Google was still fairly new about 8.5 years ago, and started Googling their names. Well, they're Bishop in the Mormon Church. They'd given max amount of money to Mitt Romney, and all of a sudden, as money started pouring in, up to about $450,000 a day to pass Prop 8, it was very clear that this was all Mormon money.
I'm going to cut you off because it occurs to me that we haven't actually explained what Proposition 8 was all about. And we have international listeners, people might not remember it. So what was the proposition? What was California trying to pass?
This would have been about the 30th state to pass a ban on gay marriage in our Constitution.
Right.
It had been done in 2000, led by the Mormon Church, it turned out. But that was just an initiative. It did not cement it in the Constitution. So 8 years later, they came back to do that. We had just been allowed gay marriage a month earlier before the campaign started by our state Supreme Court, a unanimous vote.
Right.
So it was on the books. They had cleverly realized it might go. It was in the courts. And if it did, that they had this ballot initiative, referendum to repeal it, that would be on the November 8th, 2008 ballot.
Right. Okay, so getting back into the fight, you found all of these names that were connected with the Mormon Church.
And I took the story to the reporter at the Wall Street Journal I thought might be interested. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, Mark Schufts. He didn't really know much about campaign reporting, but we took him down and met at a Starbucks, went through the whole process in our campaign reporting with our Secretary of State's office. And he disappeared for almost a month. And I was getting a little frustrated because the campaign clock was ticking. But in September, mid-September, the Journal came out with this great story. And it exposed the church. It talked to Nadine Hansen, who was somebody I'd been working with anonymously. I had no idea who this was, but she revealed herself in the story. And the church, of course, ducked it, but it showed that they were involved. And that broke the story. And as I've been told by the Public Affairs Department point person, Bill Evans, since then, that the Mormon Church describes itself as pre-Prop 8 and post-Prop 8 in public affairs. And because the world has changed dramatically for the church since then.
Yeah, so, I mean, it does seem to like so the church itself ended up pouring money from their own coffers into the Prop 8 campaign? Is that part of what happened?
Well, not in Prop 8, actually. They're pretty cheap, as I've learned, as I've done a lot of my research. They got involved in 1995 in Hawaii in a 1998 election. And there they put in $500,000 of church funds, tithing money, into that campaign. And they got a little heat over it in Hawaii. It was pretty regionalized. So they kind of pulled away after another election in Alaska. I think they dumped $400,000 in, and they went the cheap route, and they got their members to do it. So it was less traceable. And this was going on in state after state after state, not just in California, but all over, certainly in Utah, Idaho, various states, California in 2000. And so it was a little harder to put the puzzle together, but I did. And then after the election, after they're successful, and they ran a brilliant campaign, and with an awful group of allies they had to work with, and they kept them all kind of in line, I looked at their final campaign report, and it showed that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had spent $2,078 on the campaign, period. Well, at that point, we knew they had 25,000 precinct walkers for the last 9 Saturdays of the campaign. They had phone banks from Idaho, from California, from all over, organized by the church. They had websites. They had 26 slick commercials. They did all of this. and they hadn't reported it. So I spent 10 days holed up in my house. I worked with my compliance attorney who specializes in this, and we filed this precedent-setting complaint against the Mormon Church with our state ethics office. And you have to wait about 10 days, and they investigate less than 5% of the complaints. Well, I was in Tupelo, Mississippi, doing a little research against the American Family Association when I got the call from the executive director saying, we are going to investigate your complaint against the Mormon Church. And I filed 13 separate charges on things I'd mentioned against them.
And what kind of charges were they?
Well, that they hadn't reported the phone banks. They had thousands of people bust in. They didn't report how much the buses were were costing. They had phone banks out of Melaleuca's office in Idaho, Mr. Vandersloot. They hadn't reported those as an in-kind. There was just charge after charge after charge, which they figured they wouldn't get caught on. They hadn't before, and they poured it on. So,
I remember, I don't know, Frank, if you remember this, but I remember during that time hearing about people being asked or being told that there was a volunteer opportunity for them to go to phone banks here in Utah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And call Californians to encourage them to vote. I remember there being a call out among Mormons to from here to go and make phone calls. And I remember just being horrified. I find the idea of trying to, take away the rights of, and this was about taking away rights that had already been won. I mean, even holding back rights, but to remove rights from gay people was horrific enough. But to do it from a state that isn't involved seemed bizarre to me.
Well, the church is pretty good. They have a 180-person public affairs office, which I have great regard for their skills and abilities, and of course, their unlimited budget, which helps too. But they have very top people. They were very effective. Arizona, Amendment 102, same exact wording was on the ballot in 2008 as well. And I'm told by two former Mormons that were the co-chairs of the No campaign that all $6 million and all the expertise, all the activities were all run by the Mormon Church, and the money came from Mormon donors. So they're very effective. They just hadn't gotten caught until Prop 8 in California.
And they did encourage their parishioners to donate money. I mean, I read about Mormons in California who couldn't afford it, who were donating their life savings, who were, getting rid of their kids' college funds to support this proposition.
It wasn't just all Alan Ashtions of the world giving $1 million as he did to pass Prop 8. I think you're referring to this couple in Sacramento. The guy worked for Intel. They did a big interview with him. He'd given $50,000. I figured, obviously, an Intel executive who's worth millions of dollars. Well, when he was interviewed by KCRA-TV up there, he said no, that they had one car, 5 kids, and that they'd cashed out their 5 kids' college accounts in order to give that $50,000 to the campaign.
Yeah, just crazy.
And told by the church. In the Wall Street Journal story, Mark Schoof got, and I was amazed at that, he got this executive, the former CEO of Clorox Bleach, who's LDS, to talk about a conference call that he and about 40 other Mormons had been on where they were told to give $25,000 each. And if you look at the date of the call, as documented in the journal, you could see those the 40 names or 38 names of individuals, including him, that gave that $25,000. So they deny they strong-arm, but they did.
Wow.
And they had a separate P.O. box he found out about for contributions, which the church denied, so they could check off to make sure if the contributions were received.
Wow.
Kind of like a tithing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know how they handle tithing when they're...
Yeah, and believe me, the Mormon Church knows how to bring some pressure to their to bear on their parishioners.
Absolutely.
And their opponents.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. So what ended up happening with Prop 8?
Well, so I'm very proud when I got the call that they were going to investigate, and I did a press release out of Tupelo from my Holiday Inn room there. I'm inundated with a lot of media, and it was a huge black eye for the church. My favorite of that was that Saturday, this was right around Thanksgiving, New York Times editorial commending the Fair Political Practices Commission for taking up the investigation and commending Fred Karger by name for bringing it forth, and it was an 18-month investigation. The church was prosecuted. They were found guilty. They pled guilty on all 13 counts of election fraud and were fined. It was not quite a slap on the hand, and they denied everything. They even had their Oakland spokesperson for the Oakland Temple on the channel ABC affiliate in San Francisco looking right in the camera saying the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints gave $0 to Prop 8. So that's when I learned that the church is not always forthright in their political activities.
Yeah, it seems impossible that they could be pleading guilty to 13 counts of election fraud and then looking into a camera and saying we didn't do anything wrong.
Well, it was the plead, their comment was before. I mean, it was so after I filed the complaint, of course, they attacked me pretty regularly and then denied any money expenditures. And then when they did file an amended return, which caused penalties and fines for the campaign committee and themselves, on our late Friday at the end of January, when the final campaign report was due, they did amend it, and they said they'd contribute about $190,000 in in-kind contributions. But just as an example, I've gotten all those records. We have a list of 75 Mormon Church employees listed it's all open public documents from this investigation. These are church employees in Family Search and Public Affairs that worked on the Prop 8 campaign out of the headquarters in Salt Lake City. And conveniently, all of them worked less than 10% of their time, which I don't buy, so they didn't have to report the percentage of their salaries. But they spent millions and millions of dollars to pass Prop 8.
Wow. Well, Fred, it seems like a church that puts this much time and effort into political campaigning might be running afoul of rules of the IRS. Is that possible?
I was told at the time when I started this, 8 years ago, look into their tax exempt status, file a complaint against them. I'd say, I'm a political guy. That's not my area. But as the 8 years have passed, and then when they came out with this policy banning same-sex married couples from the church, their apostates, and their kids, if they have kids, are out of the church until they're 18, and then they have to choose between their families, their parents who raised them, and their church. And, of course, within a month, I think, there were 32 documented teenage Mormon suicides around the country by Wendy Williams Montgomery, who's got a gay son.
Yeah.
And then I saw her at a wedding here about 2 months ago, and she said it's up to 68. So when that policy was put into effect, and which was also leaked, of course, days before they were ready to announce it, there's a big leaking problem at that church. I decided to step this up and to go after their tax-exempt status because someone has to fight back for those teens and those people who are being hurt, who are, families who sons or daughters took their own lives. What about all those who have contemplated, who are depressed, who are having all this anxiety, who have attempted suicide, and so they don't have a voice. So we are launching MormonTips.com. We're going to kick it off this week officially with our first commercial that's going to be running in Logan, in Ogden, in Salt Lake City, St. George, and Provo, asking the public's help, mostly Mormons and ex-Mormons, if they have information on the church's tax-exempt status, on any violations, either on their political or where I think we're going to really find a lot of information is on their vast business holdings all over the world.
Yeah.
That some of which they claim are tax exempt, some of which, of course, as a church, they might be like City Creek, but are they paying taxes? Some are for profit, but do those, like Deseret Books and the media operations and the Polynesian Cultural Center, but do they pay taxes? So we're going to do two fronts. We're going to look at all these through a team of lawyers and researchers and investigators, some of whom we brought on. We're going to bring in the top tax-exempt attorneys in the country to help us, and we're going to put a word out through commercials on our website, MormonTips.com, to take information from former church employees. As long as it's legally obtained, we will not take anything. There's no hacking. There's none of that, but there's a lot of information out there. We've already seen a lot of leaks through the church on those videos that came out last fall and other documents, and I was a recipient of boxes full of documents about 8 years ago, which detailed exactly all they did in all these state marriage campaigns to pass them, going back to Hawaii in 95 all the way through California in 2000, the Prop 22 campaign and beyond. So I know they're very active in all this. There are limits on their political activities with the IRS, and certainly on their tax consequences as far as not declaring profits or paying taxes and property taxes even. And we're going to look at all that for about a year or two. And when we have our complaint done, and it's going to be massive, and I imagine hundreds of boxes of evidence, we're going to drive it up to Ogden to the IRS office there and do it with great fanfare and make sure that there's an investigation of the church by the IRS.
That's amazing.
Wow.
It strikes me as an uphill battle to go against a monolith like, I mean, outside of Utah, I don't think people understand sort of the scope of this church, but they have how much do we estimate that their holdings are? Do we have a guess on that?
If you look at tithing, which is estimated between 8 and 20 billion a year, and on top of that, the fast Sundays, contributions to temples, people who leave their estates to the church. I mean, it's just billions and billions and billions of dollars. We're our estimates. Don't forget, this has been going on for 180 years.
Yeah.
And they're frugal, and they have all lay ministers, so they don't have the expenses that the Protestants or the Catholics have.
They're not paying their bishops.
No.
They're not paying,
The bishops are paying them.
Yeah.
So estimates I've heard, and were put on our website, anywhere between $1 and $3 trillion. Their capitalization is higher, presumably, than the combination of ExxonMobil and Apple, which are the two biggest corporations in America. And it's all run out of the headquarters and with Harvard MBAs and lawyers.
No way.
We think that they're very savvy. And as membership slows, which we're starting to see because of their Prop 8 and all their other activities and the internet and a variety of reasons, they're looking more to these investments. And I don't think they're paying taxes on them. I have no idea, but we're going to find out.
Interesting.
Wow.
So we're putting the call out. I mean, Frank, you and I have quite a few ex-Mormon listeners.
One or two. Yeah.
People who might know something. How, Fred, can these people get in touch with you? How can they get the information to you?
Well, on Tuesday, our vastly new, improved, slick website will be live. It's up now, but it's MormonTips.com. We have a tips line, which is 801-381-8245. It's 801-381-8245.
There you go.
That's it. And just got our new number. And then there's a guy named Ryan McKnight who's gotten a lot of attention lately. He has set up MormonWikiLeaks.com, which we're not affiliated with. But if anybody has information that they want to get out in the public eye, which then we can use in our complaint, go to MormonWikiLeaks.com. And it's encrypted and it's safe and your anonymity will be protected.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's going to be So I hope that you'll come back and check in with us as things progress, as your campaign goes on, because I am fascinated by this whole thing. I personally wish you well. I think that this is something that absolutely needs to happen. It's
same here.
I want to say it's a dangerous religion. I mean, it's a religion that I mean, whenever a religion has this much money and has this much power,
well, and control over the members. That's because they're coercing all these people into donating money, and that's. That level of control to get like the 25,000 a piece. That's like crazy town.
Yeah. Yeah. Coercion versus just persuasion is it's a potato. But yeah, it's nuts what this. And Fred, you're not even you're from out of state. You're probably not even aware of all of the political power that they have here in this state. But yeah, literally.
Oh, yeah.
There are several issues that if the church doesn't say act, our state legislature won't even bring them up.
Yeah.
If the church doesn't say we're open to new thinking on this along these lines, even if it's something stupid as liquor laws, they know better than to even bring it up, because they are the political power in this state.
It's a theocracy, and they have total control. And I've heard enough stories to see and certainly read enough that when the legislature wants to do something, if the church hasn't signed off on it, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
And I would hope somebody out there in the legal community, and I've shopped this around a little bit. I mean, I always have said that the church has undue influence in Utah and in the states surrounding Utah, where they control city councils, county offices, the legislature, certainly every member of Congress who's LDS. And that undue influence could be put to a federal court challenge, because, that's not how this country is set up. And they've set up Utah to do just that, to do their bidding as a theocracy. And I think that's wrong. And we're not going to be looking into that, but hopefully some legal organizations will.
Well, and hopefully your campaign, however it ends up coming out, will at least apply enough pressure that they'll think twice about engaging in, political campaigning against gays or ramping up the power of religion, which we know that they're trying to do. We saw that video of Mike Leavitt, former governor of Utah, talking about the campaign that he wants to do to raise the power, the political clout of religions in this country. I mean, they're trying to
they
break
need more power,
right? They're trying to break down the wall between church and state. It's a thing that they are actively working towards. So maybe, hopefully, your campaign will make them think twice.
Well, they're going to be under a lot of scrutiny, and they have to be going nuts right now because it's a sieve at the headquarters. I mean, we saw those videos, those 15 videos. And, of course, he talked about, they call it the First Amendment Defense Act. Well, it's the First Amendment Destruction Act. Yeah. It's giving the ability to discriminate, not just against LGBT Americans, but a whole array of Americans by religion based on religious beliefs. And it also, and they did this was in May of 2012 when he's presenting to the apostles. That was 4.5 years ago, and they're talking about how far along they were then. Well, their plan is to go state by state, their RFRA laws, and then the federal law. And the federal law is all Mormon. It's authored by Senator Mike Lee in the Senate and Congressman Raul Labrador, who's also Mormon from neighboring Idaho. And when Paul Ryan wouldn't hear it last year, because there was a certain veto by Obama, guess who heard it? Jason Chaffetz, his committee, government organization, or whatever it's called, heard the bill. And so the church is behind all of that. We also saw what they're doing on their missionary program, and that's something we're going to look into, because when the Mormon church sends missionaries into Mexico or Brazil for 2-year visas granted these missionaries, and we saw it in that video by former United States Senator Gordon Smith, where he's bragging to the apostles how he was able to secure 200 visas for the nation of India through the Indian ambassador to the United States, and sent the church lobbyist, that Ralph Hardy, over to the guy's house to pick him up. Well, that's illegal under the Foreign Corruption Act and possibly the Logan Act. So the church thinks it's real cute in doing that. How do they get all these visas? How do they get 5,000 visas for Mexico for missionaries there? I mean, that's a very corrupt government. Are they paying cash, which we don't know because there's no transparency in the church? Are they paying off Mexican officials, Brazilian officials to get 2-year visas for their missionaries? So we're going to be taking this out of the United States. We're going to be examining their political activities, their lobbying. This columnist, Morgan Jones, who attacked me in the Deseret News when we announced the making of our commercial last month, turns out she was an intern in the Foreign Affairs Department out of Public Affairs in D.C., and her job, as she lists on her LinkedIn profile, was to set up diplomatic receptions for diplomats and members of Congress. So we know the church is, I don't know, whining and dining, but entertaining diplomats to get favors, and that is highly questionable under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, please do keep us abreast of how the campaign's going, and I think you can count us as allies. If there's ever anything that we can tell our listeners in terms of ways that they can be helpful, I'm sure that I'm sure they'd want to hear it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks so much, Fred.
Yeah, Fred, thanks for dropping by. We really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. It's been
Great.
fun.
Well, that was great.
Yeah.
Fascinating guy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Nice
awesome
guy,
little
too.
chat.
Yeah.
Really nice guy. So
Wish you well out there, Fred.
whew, yeah, best of luck with that.
Yeah.
If that can actually happen, Dan. Holy crap.
What, if the LDS Church loses their tax-exempt status?
Oh my god.
Let me tell you something. Suddenly, and out of nowhere, Utah will be the best educated state in the world. Like, we'll have, our schools will be palaces. Our roads will be paved with gold. For our state will not know what hit it in terms of tax revenue.
Just a lump of cash. Just earth shaking.
Amounts of, right, until suddenly, and for reasons that we can't explain, the Utah State Tax Commission, or the Utah State Tax Code, suddenly has a thing that says we would never, ever tax those people. Ever. In which case, just the federal government will get a lot of money.
Yeah, it's going to be...
It's an uphill battle. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
I just love if nothing comes of it other than they have had to be distracted, they've had to put resources into this, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, and if they shut up a little bit about political things, that'd be great too.
Scare them a little.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Well, that's our show, kids. We if you guys have anything you want to write into us about, if you want to talk to us about Fred and what he has to say, or the taxation or lack of taxation of churches, you feel free to write into us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or you can leave us a voicemail message. 424-666-8442 is the number to call and leave us a message.
Yeah, that's a great thing to do. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
And while you're there, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge if you'd like to join a nice little closed group.
Yeah.
That's got a great conversation going every day.
Super supportive group of people there just loving on each other. And you know, when you're feeling blue about how the world is going, it's a great place to go and chat with some folks. So do that. Speaking of the Members Only Lounge, I want to thank Amy, Sarah, and Danny for their hard work as moderators there.
And in general on Facebook, thanks to Mackenzie for all the posts that she puts up and all the work she does there with the other side of Facebook.
Indeed. Thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their fine music, and my cousin Gordon Johnston for his organ music in the middle section there.
And thank you, dear listener, for coming back,
for tuning in
every week. We sure do appreciate you listening.
We do indeed. Goodbye.